Hi, everyone. This is Hal Krosman with Screenwriting U. And today we're going to be talking about the best one character movie that's out there. Now, there may be others that are good. I think this one does an exceptional job in a bunch of different areas, and that's what we're going to show you as we go through this today. So here we go. First, we'll talk a little bit about the value of contained projects. And I'll just tell you I'll tell you the big thing up front. It makes it so much easier for a producer to get your movie produced. And that's one of the things that we're after here, right? What we want is for you to be able to go from being someone who just is writing scripts to someone who has been optioned, right? Someone who has the success that you've always wanted. And it puts you on the road to having even bigger successes. We'll walk through the key parts of great contained movies so you can see those. I'll do an analysis of the movie Locke and focusing on exactly what you could do right now to create something that's just that amazing. And then we'll talk about the upcoming class, the ultimate contained movie for those of you who want to master this genre and have something that will surprise producers at the level of quality that exists there. So, the value of a contained screenplay. It's important to know this. First, it's so much easier to produce, right? If you think about it, if you just go, all right, this script has 19 locations, and this other one has two. Think about how much easier that is. That means you only have to move the equipment twice instead of 19 times, right? And that's just there. If you then start talking about the number of characters and all, there's like 20 things that make a difference and make it so much easier to do this. Second thing is it's easier to cast. Really, all you got to do is get one name actor and you're in business on this one. Uh, and as long as the other maybe two or three or four, or however many you have, do a good job, you've got something. You're there. It's also most likely low budget. Now, there are some contained movies that aren't low budget. For instance, Gravity, if I remember correctly, it was $100 million to shoot that movie. It had two big stars in it, right? It had Sandra Bullock and George Clooney. And it had a lot of special effects and all of those kinds of things. They had to shoot it in it's just like all kinds of stuff. But it was a contained movie. So it's possible also to have a contained movie that goes pretty high. It just depends on the situation. And why I would say yes to this, by the way, is again because each one of these things pretty much doubles or triples your chance of getting produced. All three of them together, wow, you've got such a much easier chance. And then finally, lots of producers want contained scripts. Now, as we're talking about that, let me just tell you a quick story. We just had this happen. A writer got a script, one of our writers got a script into a producer who came back and said, no, sorry, it's not for me. I thought it was going to be one thing. It turned out to be a different thing. And sometimes that happens. Our writer only had 30 seconds left on their phone conversation because the producer was already trying to get off the conversation. And she said, I have a contained movie. Would you like to hear about that? And he goes, yes, I would. He paused for a second, but he was like, yes, I would like to hear about it. She gave him the pitch. It fit the model that we're going to be presenting today and in the class, which made it really compelling to him. And he immediately requested that, and they moved to the next step. That was a situation where probably she might not have been able to talk with him again. And she saved it just by saying this word. Now, we've now had, I don't know, maybe 20, 30 writers who have had contained scripts that have been optioned and moved forward, and some of them have been made. So every writer, in my opinion, should have a contained screenplay. You know, here's the way you have to think about this. If it wasn't really clear what I just said, producers are trying in this moment to get movies made. They've been out of business for at least the last 2 years. Some of them have been out of business for the last 4 years. And this is their chance. This is the point where the streamers need massive amounts of new content. And this is the chance for those producers to be able to make something happen. So if they can do a contained script in half or a third of the time it takes them to shoot a larger feature, you know what? They might be able to get 2 or 3 movies made in the same time and get their success back. So they have a deep need, and my hope is that you're already seeing that could translate to your success if you have one of these. So, most important rules for contained movies. Number one, I'm only going to give you 2 rules here, and they're this important. Do more with less. It's like if you write a contained script exactly the way you write a regular script, you're in trouble. It's not going to work. You need to, everything you do needs to do double duty. You need less locations, but they perform double duty. They do twice as much. You need characters with layers that can be revealed along the way, meaning if you put 3 characters in one room, it's still going to be incredibly interesting because each one of them, we're going to at least find something out about them that we didn't suspect, that changes everything, that creates new drama. This is incredibly important in contained movies. Then you need more beneath the surface than on the surface. And so this is, again, it actually usually means better writing. So rule number 2, you engage us in every moment. Truth is, you're playing with less from a location perspective, a lot of times from a character perspective, all of that kind of thing. So every moment needs to be more interesting, more compelling. So first, you have conflicts on multiple levels. And if you do that, that means that there's conflicts from outside, there's conflicts from inside, there's conflicts between the characters, there's conflicts in, the decisions that everybody's making or forcing others to make, those kinds of things. Second, you create emotional dilemmas. Your characters are not just going through their own stuff, they also have certain dilemmas. I have to make a choice between this, and both of them are bad. What do I do? And if you can set that up, and it could be environmental dilemmas, it could be dilemmas between the characters, it could be just, internal dilemmas, who knows? Then you need intrigue, again, layers and reveals. And this is the part I'm talking about here. Intrigue means there's something going on under the surface that we as the audience suddenly become deeply engaged in trying to figure it out, right? We're looking beneath. It could be schemes, it could be deception, it could be there's something underneath the surface, something that is hidden that we think will have a major impact on the results here. And usually that comes from your characters. The layers means there's deeper realities in their lives. There's something that they're hiding that they're not telling us about that is going to affect everything. If you put 3 people in, let's say, a bunker, and they're hiding down there, and in the beginning, we find out that one of them just found his mother dead or something like that before he came in. And what we don't know is that one of the others was the one who killed her. The moment that that layer is revealed, we just introduced a whole nother level of conflict. And how you set the layers up and what they're about is important. And then how you reveal them is incredibly important. And I would recommend you just keep these words in mind. Reveal at the worst possible time. Be thinking about that, because a lot of times people do reveals that are just like so bland. It's like, oh, they had a character turn and say, hey, I've been wanting to tell you something. And then they tell this thing in the most bland possible way. Don't do that. Don't do that. If you're going to do a reveal, make it interesting, make it compelling, make it emotional, make it painful. Do something to make it incredibly dramatic. And then interest techniques throughout. Same scene could be written. And this is something to know. If you take a list of 10 interest techniques, right? So like you've got suspense, surprise, those kinds of things, 10 interest techniques, you could go back and rewrite that same scene 5 different ways at least. At least. You may be able to write it 10 different ways, depending upon what interest techniques you're using and when. So something to consider also. Plus, using interest techniques continually gets the audience interest again. You need this badly. So, key parts of a contained movie. And I'm moving kind of quick through this because we need to get to and talk about Locke, since you guys came in for that. And also because, understanding what they did in that movie could make a big difference in the decisions that you make. So here we go. Key parts, the basics. First, we already said this, few locations, few cast, few crew. All of this, each one of these reduces the budget. Each one of these makes it easier to shoot the movie. Obviously, having more crew will help you, but it really, when I've shot 2 movies myself, in one of them, I had 25 crew members, and the other one I had 3. The one that I had 3, so much easier, really. The one with 25, I was spending a good percentage of my time just managing the crew. So if you're shooting it yourself, this just makes a big, big difference too. Make sure it's easy to pitch to producers and to market to audiences. So this is a business decision that you make. If a producer says, what do you have? And you have to say 5 sentences to pitch it, there's a good chance one of those sentences is going to trigger them saying no. They're looking for a reason to say no. That doesn't mean you don't have a chance. Just so you know, that means if you're smart and if you create your pitch in the right way, it's easy for them to say yes, because you don't give them that chance. When I'm pitching one of these projects, I'm pitching genre, title, high concept. That's it. And it's straight to the point. It's a major hook. It's a great pitch that I've already tried out and tested with other people. And I know for sure it's going to have them say yes, because it just makes sense when you hook them. You've got 20 times better chance they're going to say yes than when you explain a lot. So, okay. Number 2, this is what I was just talking about. High concept, great title. A high concept means it's unique, which means it hasn't been done. At least there's something about it that hasn't been done so far. It can be said in 1 sentence. This is incredibly important, especially if you're doing phone pitches, which that's what Cheryl and I did when we were getting our projects into the major production companies. All we did was phone pitches. If you're doing phone pitches, if you're doing elevator pitches, if it's one of those things where you got into a pitch and the producer didn't say yes, at the end you can say, hey, could I just give you one more concept and see if it might be something that's interesting. They'll say yes. If you've respected their time up to that point, they'll say yes. You say your one sentence, they see the movie instantly. It's unique. Very good chance you're going to get a yes. We did a whole pitch thing. We had, I think we took a group of writers. We had 24, I think, managers we had them pitch to. And in the midst of that, I was watching one of them because we did it on Zoom. And this lady, she pitched her story. They spent 4 minutes talking about it. They had 5 total. Got to the end. He says, it just doesn't, it's good, but it's not for me. And she said, would it be okay if I just gave you another concept? And he goes, sure, because I told her to say that, by the way. He said, sure. She said her other project, which was a high concept, she only said one sentence. That's all she said. And he went, that's amazing. Yeah, send that to me. And that started their business relationship. So the title, it needs to point to the high concept. This one, I can't tell you how important this is. I just had a guy pitch something to 2 producers in another one of those meetings. And both of them said, what does that title mean? I've never heard that. And then he had to give a definition of the word because it was a strange word. And then one of the producers said, what's that got to do with your story? And he went, well, you'll find that out when you get to 74 minutes in. And he thought that was intriguing. And the producer went, oh, no, just forget it. And that was the end of it. And it's like, yeah, your title needs to be something that when they put it together with the high concept, they go, wow, here, high concept. And then they go, wow, when they hear the title. Don't do something innocuous. Don't do something that we have to watch the movie to figure out what it means. That may work in the book world, but it absolutely does not work in the movie world. So keep that in mind. It also, of course, needs to sell the movie. And the title is 1 to 4 words. There are a few that can go over that and get away with it, but the vast majority of the titles of movies that are successful are 1 to 4 words. It's like 97% kind of thing. So please, what you're doing here is you are trying to make sure you make the decisions that make you successful, right? I hope you are, because it's like all the time we spend writing screenplays. If we just get certain things right, people are going to read your script. They're going to love your writing. They're going to want to work with you. So then it's about character depth. And this is especially important in contained movies. So first, intrigue. You need more beneath the surface than on the surface. Now, on this one, truth is if you're doing a regular script that is something that, there's 10 characters in there and 10 locations and all of that kind of thing, you know what? You can get away with not having more under the surface. You can get away with just having a couple of things under the surface. But in a contained movie, this is going to be important. So part of what I'm telling you here, there's 2 things. First one is, if you're creating a contained movie and you do it the way we're talking, the way we've designed this model, when a producer reads it, they're just going to go, oh my God, your writing is incredible. Really, they are going to be more impressed with this script than with your $50 million script. So it is absolutely worth it. The other thing, when I said 2, was going through this process, especially if you do it the way we're going to present it in the upcoming class, going through this process will have you become a significantly better character writer. So keep that in mind. Then you need emotional issues and dilemmas. Dilemmas are amazing, especially when you put people in confined situations. Let's say a person's dilemma is, I need, they're locked in someplace and their dilemma is, I need, if I stay here, I'm safe, I'm alive. But I need to rescue my girlfriend, boyfriend, dog, horse, mother, whatever it is, which means I need to go out there, otherwise they might die. So that's a dilemma in itself. Do they stay in safety, or do they go out there and risk their life for the chance of saving somebody? And then you can create all kinds. You can create romantic dilemmas. You can create dilemmas around whether or not they interact with this other person. If they don't interact, they may not have food. If they do interact, again, they may die. Who knows? Uh, these keep your characters incredibly interesting. Then at some point, they have to face their worst fear. Again, if you only have 3 characters in a room, if it's just drama kind of conflict, and it's like, oh, who's going to eat this versus that or whatever, that's not real strong. If you can have them at some point face their worst fear, your audience is going to be deeply, deeply connected to them and your story. And then they need a strong character journey. How do they change in the midst of this situation? And I've had people say, well, they're in one room. And by the way, contained means it might be one room, it might be 5. Usually what a contained movie to me means is that there's one location that at least 85% of the movie takes place in that location. And then there'll be 2 or 3 others. Like if you look at Knives Out, there's a lot of people who would say it's not a contained movie. I say it is. It happened in one location. At least 90% of the movie happened in one location. And there were like 3 or 4 other places that they went for a very short span of time. I'll say one more thing in defense of this, because I know somebody's going to email me and say, no, in that one location, there were 15 locations. And it's like, right, I got it. But you know what? From a production perspective, they brought all the equipment to that house and then just moved it from room to room to room to outside back in. But they didn't have to load up the truck 15 times to take it to another location, right? And if you start thinking from a production perspective, that's a contained movie, right? The only time they have to go anyplace else, and the truth is they did, I think they had like 5 other locations that were something that probably they could have shot in one day or half a day. And yes, they had to go there, but the truth is they could have actually dropped 3 of those and had the whole movie be in 3 locations total, with half a day at one and half a day at another. It's a contained movie, right? So even when you have a contained movie, you still want your characters to have a strong character journey. That means they're going through a change. A character could, let's say we have a one-room story, and they're trapped in this one room while the storm is going on or something. In the midst of that character could find out things about their life they didn't know. They could, let's say they're trapped in there with some relatives who finally tell them what really happened to their dad or their mom or something like that. And it shifts everything for them, right? You've got a character, there's a journey. They go in innocent, they come out going, my whole life is different than I thought it was. So be thinking about that. And then the conflict and the other characters trigger the main character. The reason why I keep using one room, by the way, is because that just gives you a good example. But if you think about this, if you have people trapped in a place and one of them gets triggered, that's going to create all kinds of conflict. If they weren't trapped, that person could leave, or the other 2 could leave. That person could go out for a walk and figure out their life. They could get on the phone and call a friend, and there's all kinds of things they could do. But when you put them in a contained location, then when they get triggered, it it's an explosion in the room. So creates all kinds of interesting conflict, creates it makes it easy to create more intrigue. It makes it easy to create constant worry. So, and then 4, you need a meaningful structure. So this means you got a strong beginning, middle, and an ending, right? You've got strong turning points. And again, I'll tell you, a lot of people say, well, how do you have a turning point in a room? You can build turning points into that story, and you are going to build turning points into that story. That's what we do. Understanding turning points is one of the big keys to structure. A lot of times people, I'll say, so what's the turning point? And they'll go, well, he just decides he'd rather do something different. And it's like, that's not a turning point. That's a character making a decision in a really light and low conflict movie. You need something really strong here, that the moment that turning point happens, everything has changed. The moment that turning point happens, we can't go back, right? If you have that kind of thing, you have a real chance that once a producer has read that turning point, they're not going to stop until they finish reading your script. And then every 30 minutes, the stakes, the conflict, the tension rise. Which keeps us engaged, keeps us worrying, all that kind of thing. And of course, we're going to deliver on the character journey powerfully. So let's go talk with Locke. I hope you had a chance to watch this movie. If you haven't, absolutely do. And I'm not saying, oh, this is the perfect movie or it's spectacular, but watch the things that showed up in the midst of it. We've got a story here that starts with a guy standing outside his car. He gets in his car, and now from that point on, we've got cameras focused on him 100% of the time. Incredible that they did this, that they were able to accomplish this. So it is worth looking at how they did. I don't care what you thought of the movie. Don't be a critic. Don't keep yourself from learning by doing that. Really, just step in, play this game with us, and see what happens here. So the writer, Stephen Knight, actor Tom Hardy. They've got somebody that was up and coming, that was pretty strong at that point, and got stronger after that as an actor. The hook, we've got one character in a car. That's the big hook of this movie. And it's the entire 90 minutes. He makes 34 phone calls. Now, by the way, that's not the hook. This is the hook. One character in a car. I have talked with about 25 writers who saw this movie before we started mentioning it. And almost every one of them said the reason they watched it was because there was one character in a car. They wanted to see how it could be done. And it's not just writers, it's audience members that are like curious about that also. The engaging journey, he goes from being this stable project manager and good husband to losing his job, losing his wife, all for this illegitimate baby that he hopes he'll be a good father for. Now, a lot of times people look at this and go, oh, this movie's about him hoping he'll be a good father. I think they did a pretty good job, especially for us only seeing one character. And then what this whole movie was about was he chose this event to be the man that his father wasn't. So this is the theme of the movie. It's the kind of the deep emotional core that is running him. Yeah. So under the surface, and just notice all this. We have intrigue going on. He leaves his job and goes on a mission without telling anyone. And in the beginning, it's like, what's he doing? Why would he be doing this? Why would he be putting everything at risk? And you'll notice they didn't just have him putting his job at risk. It's like this whole thing that's going to happen in the morning, this cement pour for a huge building. He just put all of that at risk. He just put like $5-10 million at risk in that situation. The conspiracy, he has a conspiracy with Donald, who is I think he was an employee in that situation. So they're hiding something. We'll talk about that in a minute. He has a conspiracy with Bethany, who is the woman who is having his child. The secret, this affair that he had with Bethany, that he never told his wife about, of course, in that situation. If he would have, well, we would have lost half of the drama of the night. So the dilemma, his marriage versus this baby that he didn't know he fathered until tonight. His job versus the baby also. So he has these two dilemmas going on. We're going to see how he deals with it. The emotional issues, he has emotional issues with every single character. And what they did was they raised the stakes high enough so that it demanded this. The wound, his father abandoned him. And we'll deal with the father thing in just a moment. And then finally, his motivation to be the person his father should have been, the person he wished his father would have been with him. So let me take you to the structure, and then I'll show you one more thing. And then I've got this really cool thing I'm going to show you on how to generate these kinds of ideas. So in the opening, just a second. He says, everything is going to hell. I think that's one of his opening lines. Everything is going to hell. He leaves the construction job in his car, right? We have no idea what this means, by the way. So it creates some intrigue. It's interesting. The inciting incident, he gets this, Bethany calls. What we don't know until this moment is that she had called him before. She just got to the hospital to have the baby. And now we find out why he's going on this journey. And she wants to know that he loves her. They had a one-night stand. He has, at that moment, has no intentions whatsoever to have a love story with her. In his mind, he made a mistake and he's paying for it, essentially. So Locke then calls and tells his wife about the affair. Now, you could say, well, that was kind of him. But the truth is he's only doing this because he's forced into it. He's on this journey. He knows what the journey is. He knows it's not going to make sense to his wife. He knows that there's going to be a baby at the end of the journey. He knows he's going to have to tell her at some point. He's basically forced into making this decision. And it doesn't sound to me like he's well prepared for it. So, and then the Act 1 turning point, he is fired from his job of being the person who is in charge of the construction crew and the cement pour that's coming up tomorrow morning. So we're at the end of Act 1 here, and we've already had quite a few things occur, but we've also set up some of these problems. We've got the Bethany situation, who wants to know he loves her. We've got the baby on the way. We've got his wife now knowing about the affair, and she was stunned and basically exited the phone call, and he's fired. So midpoint, all three of these conflicts go badly wrong. They're all off the rails. It's like it's gotten so much worse. Second act turning point, again, everything's going to hell. The rebar was put in wrong, which means they're gonna have to shut down the concrete pour. At least that's what they think at that point. Yeah, so he's in even more trouble. And then the final act, Donald, the guy who stayed the night, who is supposed to be in charge of the concrete pour in the morning, has been drinking all night. They find a crew that could possibly solve all their problems, but Donald has to go there and convince them to do it. And just getting there, he has to run in order to get there. And just as he's celebrating that success, because Donald finally comes through, Katrina calls him up and ends their marriage. And then the resolution. So this is the big fight, by the way. The resolution, Bethany calls, the baby's been born. He pulls over to the side of the road and they celebrate together. And maybe that's like the new start in that situation. Now, I just want you to see the four conflicts, because I went through the structure so that by the time we get to this, it'll all make sense to you. So first, each of these conflicts throughout this story, because if you're wondering again, how do they maintain this story in the midst of one person in a car and we never cut away, basically? And they didn't shoot it all in one shot. They're getting sides and fronts and backs and everything else. But the way we maintain this is the crises are escalating. So, and then each has a beginning, a middle, and an end. So let me just kind of walk you through these. The baby. First, the whole baby thing started before the movie started. So he's already been notified that she is going to have a baby, that she's going to the hospital. So when he gets in the car, that's what's going on with him. It's something we find out in a minute. He calls her and tells her he's on the way. She wants a relationship, but he won't commit. She wants to know he loves her, but he can't say that. Because look at the look on his face. I don't think that's where he is. Then she calls back. She's experiencing contractions. She lashes out at him, right? It's like, of course, why would we expect anything different? This is a lady in pain in multiple ways. And then the umbilical cord gets wrapped around the baby's neck. And so there's a very good chance that not only is this journey going to be a waste of time, but the child that he's hoping to be a good father to may not be around. And then finally, in the end, the baby's there. So notice it's like it escalated. This is the motivation. It's the trigger. It's the destination. This conflict escalated all the way through. Then we have his job in the concrete pour. This provides the suspense of the story. There is suspense around how the wife's going to deal with things, but this is the one that starts in the very beginning. He's just left the job. He's supposed to stay there all night, get everything ready, and they're supposed to do the concrete pour first thing in the morning. And he's leaving, and he's the guy in charge. Then he convinces Donald to stay the night and to do the concrete pour in the morning, which takes a lot. He tells his boss he's not going to be there. He gets another call back, and it turns out they've decided to fire him. But he decides to continue working, first to prove that he still can do it, he's doing the right thing, and second, maybe to get his job back. And it's like, all right, and at that point, the rebar fails. He gets a call from Donald. The rebar has failed, and he has to convince a drunk Donald to run down the road to another project and convince them to give him the rebar, right? So that's the second of the four conflicts. Now we go to breaking the news to his wife. And this one, she has no idea what's going on in the beginning. He calls her up and decides to break the news right then. She's in shock. They hang up. She calls back. She can't believe it. She's now questioning him. She's wondering what's going on. She gets very angry. She exits the call. He then calls their son and asks their son to get a phone number for him. It's a work phone number, but the wife is thinking this is the phone number of the woman he had an affair with. That freaks her out even more. She calls back in the final act and tells him that she's talked with her girlfriend. She is done with him and they're getting a divorce. So that story has started at one place and it's crashed completely. Now, finally, we have the arguing with his dead father. And this, like, let's say we made this movie and the whole time all he's doing is arguing with his dead father. I'd say, unless the father is talking back, there's no way I'd do that. But in this case, because we have these other three conflicts going on and they're escalating and we're going back and forth between them and all of that, the moments where he's arguing with his dead father is essentially him expressing the things that's going on inside him that need to change. So this one, it starts out with him saying, he hangs up from one of those calls and he starts talking to his dead father and he ends up by saying, unlike you, I take care of my messes. He doesn't use the word mess. He uses another word, which I won't say right now. But it's like he's saying, I'm different than you. I'm going to do this. Then he after another set of calls, then he has another conversation with his dead father where he says, you thought we didn't matter. You thought all of this was fake, don't you? You think that. And it's like, okay, so he's expressing that he thought his father never really cared for him. He has a third conversation with his father after another crisis where he basically expresses the moment that his father came back after being gone, being a total drunk, having abandoned the family, all of that kind of thing. And one of the things he says in the midst of that is, you were so weak. And what he's saying, he's talking in disdain. He truly hated seeing his father at that point, the father who had left him. And he hated how weak he was. And finally, in the end, he has one last conversation with his father where he shows his regret that he couldn't help his father. And it's deeply emotional, but it's like what we've seen on every one of these is a different level of the journey. Each one of them has an arc. Each one of them has its own journey. And with his father, he went from hating him in the beginning to actually feeling bad about how he treated him in the end. And I think this trip has changed this guy's life in a pretty big way. So be thinking about that for a moment. Let me now just walk you through, this brainstorming contained projects. And let me just let you know up front. We don't use AI to write scripts, not in any way. I don't want you to ever do that. That doesn't require you. It also won't get you a copyright when you get to the copyright office. But we do use AI to brainstorm because just like any other brainstorm partner or friend or writing group or getting feedback from a consultant or anything like that, it's a tool, right? It's just a tool to help us to be able to accomplish something. So I want to show you brainstorming a project here. And so you can see what this is like. So essentially, I'm using a high level prompt that one of our teams I worked with on our teams to come up with. I'm starting with a project that the genre is sci-fi thriller. The idea, this is just something that popped into my head. Two negotiation teams are trapped in a contained location as a battle by their two sides is raging all around them. So this is all I got. I just made this up about 15 minutes before we started and thought, let's just see what it does. So I asked it to give me, in this case, it'll give you 3 different possible projects. So we've got one called Deadlock. It gives us a concept. right? And I won't go through these for the moment, but it then gives us the reason for the containment. Why are they locked in? Why are they in a situation where they can't get out? What's the main conflict? What's the unique world that's going to be interesting and compelling of itself? And what's the impossible goal and unsolvable problem? Let's see what we have here. How do you broker peace when you're in it with your enemy when survival may require killing them first? Okay, that's actually interesting. I like that. So I'm having to give me three. Here's the second one, the Echo Protocol. Uh, dun, dun, dun. Two rival negotiators awaken in an AI-controlled facility, replaying simulated war scenarios. Each time they fail, the world outside deteriorates. Okay. Now listen, I haven't seen these before. I'm just going through and looking at them right now, and I'm not going to spend time reading them because I don't want to take your time on that. But basically what we have already is we're getting a chance to take an idea, right? This idea up here that I came up with and go, okay, how could we start to flesh it out and give me an opportunity to look at it and look for different ways to improve it. What do I like? What do I not like? What could I improve? That'll make it better. So this is just a brainstorm session, but it takes me from here, and instead of sitting here racking my brain and not being able to get the answers, not figuring out things, being stuck, all those kinds of things, I've now got three possible projects that actually fit my concept, that are all unique, that have all, five of these key components. Now, I want to take it a step further so you can see where this can go. And let's go back and use this one. Let's use the one that we actually said the concept. Just a second here. And I'll show you this. So there we are. And watch what this one does. So again, this is the one we're going to use right here. Let's just look at it real fast. Reason for containment, they're locked. Remember, this is the one they're locked into this AI controlled facility. They're locked in until they reach a successful diplomatic solution. So that happened. Main conflict, the AI is testing them and their what moral compromises and impossible choices they make. Okay. Can peace be reached when the algorithm is programmed to believe war is inevitable? I think that's interesting also. All right, so let's go look at what it did. I asked it to create characters. And in this case, I'm giving it a really complex kind of character profile that is specifically built for contained movies. It starts with the role of this character, then the age and description, the core traits, the motivation, the wound, the intrigue, and their lair that's going to be revealed. Now, I want you to just be thinking about this. If I can reveal some interesting layer about this character, this one, and this one, so I've got three characters there, and each of them has an interesting layer, that gives me at least three really strong twists in this story right off the bat. If each one of them has an interesting and a strong wound, there's going to be a moment where there's going to be a major breakdown by each one of them. And if they bring intrigue to the party, we're going to have all kinds of scheming going on between these characters, even while they're pretending like they're getting along really well. So just the two things we just did, where we created basically a version of a project that gave us the key points and a version of the characters, means we are going to end up with something here that is unique, that is compelling, that goes beyond where most people's projects actually go. And it took us, well, I can do this in 5 minutes. Now, having said that, Then I spend 2 to 4 hours working with it afterwards and bring as much of my stuff as I possibly can to the project. That's a pretty amazing prompt. But if you want to master contained movies, let me walk you through how to do that. Because what we've actually done here today, while pretty significant, is just the tip of the iceberg. So again, if you're looking to master contained movies, this is the program that you want to get into. And let me just walk you through it real fast. You, as soon as you sign up, you'll get the prompts that I just showed you, and you'll be able to start creating projects. My recommendation, again, is that you create between 5 to 10 projects. You can do those in like really 10 minutes each, but a couple of hours worth of work to make it yours. Then you come in here, you take a look at your key decisions for a great contained movie. I've only talked about 2 of these so far. There's quite a few others. Once you take a look at these, you'll instantly know whether your movie has a chance or not of actually being sold. From there, you go to the high concept lesson, where even though you have a concept, this is your chance to make sure that it's the best it can be. And it'll give you a series of strategies to be able to elevate it to the point where it's truly professional and it will hook producers. Then it's about making sure that your characters are right. We just brainstormed some characters, and you'll actually be blown away by what you get from that. However, by the time you get to this lesson, you're going to get a chance to see exactly what makes incredible characters for specifically for contained movies. So you'll go back over the characters you've created and elevate them, take them to a whole new level. You'll also see what's missing when you get to this. Then it's about brainstorming infinite possibilities inside confinement. I won't tell you what this model is right now, but basically what it comes down to is people said to us over and over, well, in a confined movie, I'm not able to do all the things I could do in a regular movie. And so what we did was we put together a brainstorming model that will give you all kinds of opportunities you've never seen. We've found that some people would look and say, well, I can't really do much with these characters. They'd use this model and come out of it going, oh my God, my characters are incredible. I can't do much with this location. And by the time they're done, they've found 50 different things they could do with the location to make it interesting. Doing this and mastering this will put you at a whole different level as a writer. Then it's about building in more character depth than you already have, and this means we're going beneath the surface. Then layers that fascinate audiences. We talked just a little bit about this tonight, but you could have layers for characters. You could have layers for the story. You actually could have layers for that single location that surprises audiences, that gets them deeper engaged, and shows you as a pro. Lesson 7 now is about creating the character journey. And in this, let's say you have 3 characters. You might have more, by the way. You could have 3 to 10. But let's say you have 3 characters. In that case, every one of your main characters is going to have their own journey in that story. From there, it's about a structure that does really well in containment. So you will learn how to do that. You will create your structure for your story. Then it's about keeping it low budget. This is going to be really important, even if you're doing a higher budget project. I mean, if you know it, it's like most of the contained movies are fairly low budget. There are some that are more extreme, like for instance, Gravity actually had a budget of $100 million. So it's possible to get into the high budgets. But here's the big thing this will do for you. Let's say a producer comes back to you and says, we were thinking about doing this movie at 15 million and now we only have 2 million. You'll be able to look at your script and go back to them with a plan for how to reduce it down to that budget. And that makes you invaluable on that team. And then at that point, you go into writing your outline, and from there into writing your script. Now, this is a 30-day program that is going to do two things for you. First one is you're going to master this thing about creating contained movies. And that means you might create contained movie after contained after contained. And sooner or later, one of those has a really good chance of selling. The second thing is because you are learning higher level skills that are specifically designed to improve all of these parts, it's going to elevate your writing. It's going to give you more precision, more of an ability to look at a situation and design something that's amazing. So I promise you, it won't just be this one script that benefits from it. The truth is you will have script after script after script that because of this program, you will have written them at a much, much higher level. The class actually starts on June 9th. That gives you about a little over 3 weeks to brainstorm projects. I'd recommend 5 to 10 projects before you make a decision. Then you pick the very best one. That gives you such a much better chance of selling. The normal price is $250. I'm going to give a special. This is for the first 10 people that sign up. You'll get in at $125. That is half price. It saves you $125. It also means you're going to come into this program and 30 days later, you're going to come out with an amazing project that gives you a real chance in this industry. So even if you're just signing up for contest and that kind of thing, every entry is going to be $60 to $100 anyway. What this does is this doubles, triples, quadruples your chance of getting into the finalist category in those entries. And if you're trying to, again, if you're trying to get a producer or an agent or a manager, this shows you as professional. It brings a project in that has a really good chance of selling, and it increases the chance that you'll move forward in this industry. So again, what we just did today was just the tip of the iceberg. I promise you, you will love what you learn as you go through this program. So all you got to do is write this link down. It's bit.ly, bit.ly /contained with an ED on the end, class. No capitals, no spaces, no dashes. Again, just write down bit.ly, bit.ly /contained class. Put that in your browser where you normally put a web address and click return and begin this adventure. As soon as you sign up, we will send you the pre-training email that gives you the prompts so you can start generating projects today. So have fun with that. I promise you, you're going to be blown away by what comes up, what kinds of projects you can come up with, what kinds of characters, the level and the quality at which it shows up in the first place, and then what you learn and how you grow as a writer, even with just the prompts. Once you come into the class, every day you'll be learning something new. You'll be elevating the quality of your own personal writing. And ultimately, you'll have something that when a producer says, do you have something contained? The answer is absolutely, yes, you do. So looking forward to seeing you in the class. With that, I want to say, I wish you the absolute best with your writing, and you're going to absolutely enjoy this. Good talking with you all. Bye-bye, everyone.